Let me go ahead and first respond to that since it's fresh in your minds. My opponent complains, says that the significance is that 15 to 17-year-olds have the highest rates of crashes and accidents. That's because they're the newest drivers, and as I made our point before, inexperience is what's important here. Whoever is the newest group of drivers are probably going to be the worst drivers. They're probably going to have the most accidents. So as we said before, the age group would just move up to 18 to 20-year-olds as having the highest crash rates. When he talks about inherency, he begins to talk about how we obtain our license. But the process that we go through to obtain our license is completely different from the issue of what age you get your license at. We're not going to argue that maybe the process is flawed, but what we're here to talk about is that the age should be either 16 or 18, and that has nothing to do with the process and how you get a license. So again, also with solvency, it's just not related to the age. Yes, there are difficulties, and yes, he believes there should be uniformity in the laws on how to get a license, but again, that doesn't really address the issue of should you be 16 or 18. So now to go on to some of the other points. They had talked about the executive branch, which is about the brain development. We believe that there's sufficient evidence to prove that 18-year-olds' maturity level is enough to make them better drivers than 16-year-olds. Yes, it's possible they are slightly more mature, but is that enough? Has there been proof of that? From the GJEL Accident Attorneys website, they did talk about the same thing. New research indicates that brain signals essential for motor skills and emotional maturity are the last to extend to the brain's frontal lobe, which is responsible for many of the skills essential for driving. The most important aspect of brain development for drivers is the spread of white matter. White matter begins to spread when adults reach age 20, usually completing this process between 25 and 30 years of age. So this doesn't tell us that 18-year-olds are going to be more fully developed. If this process is, if the motor skills that develop are the last developed, they're happening between the ages of 25 and 30. That doesn't include the age of 18. We were also going to mention about the graduated driver's license laws, which I think they might have briefly talked about. I don't know if they stated exactly that way. We believe that this would help improve teen driving and safety, and this is without changing the driving age. From the Journal of Safety Research, parents are in a prime position to enforce most graduate driver license restrictions, but there's some evidence that they do not enforce those restrictions that they consider too extreme. Little is currently known about the involvement of law enforcement in these systems, but there is potential for high visibility law enforcement activities to encourage compliance with restrictions. So if you're just more aware about these restrictions, like driving at nighttime and driving with no passengers, the problem is that people aren't going along with those laws. And if we had stricter enforcement, it could probably help with the teen driving safety. Some states that have these systems, they have a program where advancement is contingent on maintaining a violation-free driving record. So in addition to the documented deterrent effect of such programs, these efforts should also discourage violation of restrictions, since such an infraction would then delay the progression to the next licensing level. Anecdotal evidence suggests that when teens knowingly violate conditions of their license, they drive more cautiously. That is also, again, from the Journal of Safety Research. We also believe that there would be a lot of disadvantages to raising the age to 18. 18-year-olds could be more dangerous, potentially, because they will be inexperienced and more likely to drink alcohol than 16-year-olds. From the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, as kids get older, they drink more. By age 15, half of teens have had at least one drink. By age 18, more than 70% have had at least one drink. As you can see, they're going up. From the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, among America's youth, the rate of underage drinking increases with increasing age. Rates of current alcohol use are 21% at age 16, 29% at age 17, and it jumps to 40% at age 18, and 45% at age 19. We're seeing the biggest leap in between 17 and 18. You can assume that maybe it's because we're getting closer to the legal drinking age, they're more likely to do it. Raising the driving age to 18 will also put teens in a situation where they are possibly learning to drive while not under their parents' under their supervision. From teeninc.com, at 18, most teens will be going off to college, depriving them of the opportunity to learn motor skills from their parents. And so when you go away to college, you know, is that going to become a factor? Can you drive? Can you move to another state and go to a different school and also be learning to drive at the same time? From NPR.com, what we think of as the costs of adolescence, the risks of crime and car accidents, and all the crazy things that adolescents do are actually more issues with people in the age group of 18 to 25, largely because they have more opportunities to get into these kinds of trouble because they have less parental supervision than younger adolescents do. So again, as I was saying, when you become 18, now you can vote, now you can go to war, you know, you're becoming an adult. You are an adult at 18. You have more opportunities for freedom and for less parental supervision, so learning to drive, those aren't exactly good conditions to start learning how to drive. At 18, parents no longer have a legal right to stop their child from getting a license if they feel that they aren't ready. If a person is under 18, they need parental permission to get a permit or license. Who better to judge the maturity of teens than their parents? If a parent feels their son or daughter is not ready to drive, they can legally prevent them from doing so. At 18, they can't prevent them from doing that. Raising the driving age would be a huge inconvenience to families in the way that they function. From the Allstate.com, as activities and work obligations increase, many parents state that they need a 16-year-old in their family to drive. Some argue that it's unfair to prohibit more responsible teenagers from driving. Again, it would also make it more difficult for them to have jobs. If they don't have a car or a way to get there, they can't exactly work. And then just to very briefly address the texting issue, which they did bring up, saying that 16-year-olds would be more dangerous because they're more likely to text. From USA Today, an article said, almost half of all adults admit to texting while driving, compared with 43% of teenagers. Teens do text, but you're looking at around 10 million teen drivers and about 180 million other adult drivers. So while yes, they text, I don't think that there's enough evidence to prove that they text more than adults, since more adults are actually admitting that they text.